Hello and welcome everybody to Spark HQ.
Yeah, welcome to our office and welcome to the first of our every other week update on what you need to know about AI if you're in the creative sector. So it's hosted by me, Emma Wharton,
and me, Jules. Hi.
And we're the co-founders of Spark, AI consultancy for creatives. So let's get started. So while everyone's been on holidays, there has been so much going on in the world of AI. We've seen ChatGPT Voice, ChatGPT Search, as well as a really huge update to Midjourney and some big news today. Jules, do you want to give us a bit of an update on all that?
Yeah, sure. We'll start off with ChatGPT, everyone's favorite AI. And the big news there is ChatGPT Voice, which came out. Now, you've probably experimented with voice control of ChatGPT on your mobile phone using the app, where you get to speak a question and it gets to speak the answer back to you. But this is next level. This is literally like having a conversation with another human being where you can interrupt each other, talk about all sorts of things, and really is the closest we've ever seen to coming to sort of actually having an artificial human on your phone. So if you haven't given it a try, do it. And then the second big update is ChatGPT Search that we've seen. So this is on a waiting list only at the moment. So most of us don't have access yet. And we at Spark do not have access yet either. But the good folks at the Neuron, everyone's favorite AI newsletter, have managed to get to the front of the waiting list and have a go. And ChatGPT Search, for those of you who use ChatGPT regularly, you'll know that it's not very great at looking up facts. It has a habit of making them up sometimes. So for research, we often recommend people use Perplexity, which is kind of a mashup of Google and ChatGPT. It has the language capability of ChatGPT, but it actually gives you references and documents where it's found its facts.
So they're basically ChatGPT's moving into Perplexity space.
Exactly, and Google space as well. So Google are coming from search and going the other way. You might have seen now when you do a Google search, sometimes you get a little a summary of the search results from Google.
Yeah, it's pretty handy.
Yeah, and ChatGPT are doing that as well now. So initial thoughts from the Neuron are that it looks really good, at least as good as Perplexity, if not slightly better.
Yikes. So maybe there'll be less moving between all these different systems.
Yeah, and I think, the great convergence is starting to happen where all of these niche tools start adopting new features and becoming broader, and so hopefully we'll have to use fewer of them. So that's everything to do with ChatGPT.
So what do you suggest for now? Which one should we be using, or should we be trying them all?
Well, ChatGPT Search isn't available to everybody yet. You've got to join the waiting list. We're on it. We don't know when we're going to get access. So for now, stick with Perplexity.
And a bit of Google.
Okay, when it's the right tool.
When you need facts.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is great for other stuff, not facts necessarily. So let's move on then. We've only got half an hour. There have been huge improvements in video as well in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of talk about Flux as well, which has just moved into the market.
Yeah, so we'll start off with images before we get onto video, actually. So over the summer, Midjourney have been hard at work. Now, those of you that have used Midjourney, to start with, you have to use Discord, which is something that normally teenagers are found on, and it's a little hard to actually get to grips with. Well, the big news is that the website version that they've been trialing for a while, that was only available to experienced users like Spark and the crowd, is now available to everybody as of yesterday. You can just go to midjourney.com and you've got a simple to use web interface.
It's a really nice interface.
Yeah. So that has vastly increased the ease of use.
But also they're giving a free trial as well, aren't they?
And yeah, you can. Yeah. It has been £8 a month for the minimum package, and they are doing a limited amount of free trials. So if you haven't got stuck into Midjourney, do so now. And there's also been a lot of other stuff going on with Midjourney, which is why it's still the kind of most powerful image creator out there. Firstly, they've released version 6.1 of the model about a month ago, which has further refinements to kind of details, faces in the distance, and some of the other things which weren't always perfect before. And version 6.2 is slated for release in the next few weeks.
Any idea what's coming in 6.2?
I think it's going to be a gradual refinement. And then they're talking about a version 7 that will come towards the end of the year, where we might see another sort of noticeable change in performance. So 6.1 and probably what will be in 6.2 will be for the aficionados out there. We'll notice some small differences.
Okay.
And then they've also released Midjourney Editor, which allows you to do many more of the controls that you might do in Photoshop directly in the Midjourney interface. So again, less hopping between tools, which is quite handy.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay. Fab.
So
tell us about, do you want to tell us about video then? I keep trying to get onto it, but
okay, but I haven't yeah,
because
we haven't talked about Flux yet either. So so Flux
I've
is
messed up my questions, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, we plan these things in advance, and then she just goes off piste. So the other thing that's been making waves in imagery is Flux. So a new model that came out about 2 weeks ago. The people behind it are the people who set up Stable Diffusion, which is one of the other big image models. You don't see Stable Diffusion talked about so much because the only way you can access it is through an API. It's built to have other apps built on top of it rather than to be directly accessible to people like you and me.
So you might be using it a lot through other apps, but not necessarily.
That's right. So yeah, so it's what sits behind Leonardo, for example, if you've ever used that. And though some people from Stability AI have gone and set up their own company called Black Forest Labs, got a bunch of funding and released their own model called Flux. And the image quality looks super, super great, but it's like Midjourney in the old days. It's designed to be called by an API, super clunky interface, very little control over your images at the moment, but definitely another player in the market. It's just been plugged into Grok 2, good old Elon Musk's XAI, have released Grok 2 on X, what we used to call Twitter, and the image model in there is Flux, and there are no guardrails on it. So if you want to do a picture of Snoopy in bed with Kamala Harris, you can do it on Grok, on X.
Scary stuff, and scary words.
Very
Grok.
Elon Musk.
But do we think Elon's invested in Flux then? Is that why?
Well, maybe. He's put 6 billion of his own cash into XAI. So maybe to boost their image generation, he's invested in Black Forest Labs as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
With Elon, you never write him out of the story, that's for sure.
So should we all start using Flux? Because I've seen really mixed reviews, and some that are saying that it's like way better than Midjourney, some that are saying that Midjourney is still the #1. And I guess like today's announcement with Midjourney as well changes things a bit about how easy it is to just get into through the web interface. I
think a lot of the hype you see around these image models is around purely the quality of the image that comes out of them. And somebody will type in, person walking along a beach in Mauritius and get an incredibly photorealistic looking picture and go, this is the best image model ever. But we all know that working on real creative projects, there's a lot more to usable imagery than that. You need to have control over what's in the image. You need to be able to keep consistency from one image to the next, keep consistent characters from one to the next, and you need to integrate it into your workflow by being able to crop and extract high-res images and all those kind of things. So because of all of those other things around it, Midjourney is still #1 by quite some way.
Okay. And do you think that all these things are going to start to get built into tools more, a bit like Elon's doing?
100%. I think, Adobe are the other sort of gorilla of the industry here, and they're continually investing in Firefly. We're all already hooked on generative fill and generative expand and some of the AI tools that are built into Photoshop, and I've just been using them on a project literally yesterday, and the quality is astonishingly good. The latest thing we've seen is Firefly being built into Illustrator. So you can now do mock-ups directly in Illustrator, where if you've got your product photo and you've got your logo saved as a vector file, you can bring that in and it will automatically mold the vector file to match the texture and contours of the object you're mapping it onto.
Amazing. The hours I have spent on mock-ups in my life. Wow.
Yeah, so that's remarkable technology. Even complex things like creases in clothing, it can put the logo to look naturally across them and read the shadows and everything. So we're going to see more and more and more of that over the coming years, where these tools just get built into the software that we already use. Right now, you have to jump around between lots of different things because they're all just good at one thing. But that's slowly going to change.
Okay, cool. So Now you've gone quiet. It's my moment to ask about video.
This is the video moment. We're back on track, readers. Okay.
Tell us about Runway, because they've done some big updates as well, haven't they? And I've seen you spent the morning on Runway just now.
That is right. So
Yeah.
Runway, the big drop of Runway was generation 3 of their text to video model that came out about 3 weeks ago. And as of about 2 weeks ago, they updated that to allow you to do image to video as well. So for most of us, image to video is more interesting because we can have a lot of control over an image in Midjourney, take that into Runway, and then you've got a lot of control over the video in Runway. So you can start to create mock-ups of what a film might look like, or an advert might look like, or a brand film that might look like for your client, all using ChatGPT for concepts, Midjourney for images, and Runway for video. And as Emma said, I've been using that literally today.
Some quite funny things I've been looking at over your shoulder.
So yeah, I'm making a little film for a heritage brand. So we've got lots of archive stills that have been scanned from old newspaper columns in the 1950s. And as you can imagine, newspaper from the 1950s is very grainy, very low resolution. And Runway really likes to work off a high-res file, because when it's high-res, it finds it easy to identify the objects in the image and so therefore know how to animate them. Using these really grainy newspaper images, we've seen some rather interesting things of...
You had an animal head coming out of its bottom.
That
was quite...
I wasn't sure if we were going to go live with that, but we have. So yes, that was today's big moment. So... we're working on that.
The lesson is to use high quality images and perhaps not newspaper scans for. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the workflow is Midjourney for the image, Magnific or Gigapixel for the upscale. Get that into Runway, then animate it in Runway.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So, just staying on video for a while. I'd really like to talk a bit about what campaigns we've seen out and about, what great use of AI we've seen in kind of real life.
Yeah.
Not just on our computers and experiments. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing that I spotted was Faith, the AI first agency. They have a film they pulled together. I think it's called Finding Faith Brand.
That's right. Yeah.
It's on their website. It's really, really interesting, but it's all built with AI. And
yeah, that's right.
I know you've had a real look at it, and
yeah, I'm not sure when the question ends.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to know what you think about it, and I think you've spoken to Faith as well, and
yeah, that's right.
Just to get a bit more insight on that, it's really worth checking out. Go to their homepage; it's on there. Yeah.
So for those of you that haven't come across Faith, they are the AI first agency spin-off from VCCP, and they have created their own brand film. Entirely generated with AI, and then done a brilliant behind the scenes that shows you exactly how they pulled it all together. And for those of you who really want to understand how AI can work in a creative workflow with a team of real world-class experienced creatives, I highly recommend you go and have a look at it. Check it out on their website. The Drum did an interview with them as well. I've also got a LinkedIn post about it. And actually on Monday, I had a call with Morten Legarth, the creative director at VCCP, who oversaw that project. And it was super interesting to hear about how they pulled that together. So it's a 3-minute long animated film in the style of a beautiful cartoon. And what's interesting about how that was put together was firstly, how much human there is still in it. All of the concepting, all of the storyline, was pulled together by creatives who knew how they wanted to express the brand, knew the audience they were trying to reach, and wanted to tell this story in an interesting new way. But then to use AI to actually do the creative production for the animation has required a whole stack of tools, everything from Blender to create 3D models, to character AI to create some of the characters, to Midjourney to create backgrounds, to using Stable Diffusion, using the Comfy UI interface to actually animate some of the scenes, and then color graded and edited in traditional film editing software. And the whole process really shows how a team comes together around this and the skills that are required to operate in this new way. And when you look at the film, you will think, goodness, that is rather complicated. Why didn't they just hire some animators? The result is they got it all done in about half the time and about 20% of the cost of doing it in the traditional way. So it's a real flagship example with a proper behind the scenes that really gets you to understand how these things really work and how you can start to use these kind of things in the way that you work too. So fantastic story. Highly recommend you go
Really
and check out Faith.
Worth checking out, yeah. And also something about McDonald's as well.
Yeah, so it's always interesting, I think, when you see big name brands actually start to experiment with this stuff. And
when you think about the bureaucracy they need to go through to get things out there with AI, it's really,
and I
really
think often when brands want to experiment with stuff, they pick a small market. You know, New Zealand gets a lot of wacky stuff, but this they released in Japan, one of the biggest markets in the world. McDonald's have done a new hamburger ad, all generated with AI. If you YouTube it, you'll easily find it. In fact, I think it was released only on Twitter originally, or X, or whatever we call it these days. And it's now obviously gone around the world because of the fact that it is entirely generated with AI. You can tell that it is entirely generated with AI, but I think actually that's fine. You're not expecting it to look like a film. So worth checking out, but great to see, you know, flagship brands starting to use this kind of technology.
Yeah. And in future episodes of this, we'll be a little bit more organized, and we'll show some of these images on screen so you can see what we're talking about all at once. So.
Yeah, we might actually show some stuff, and so you don't just have to look at us.
So we get a lot of our AI intel from lots of brilliant newsletters that are out there. I'm reading kind of niche press and that kind of thing, but actually there's been a lot of AI in the real news headlines recently, isn't there?
Yeah, that's right.
Give us an overview.
Yeah, a few. So yeah, when AI actually makes it through to the real newspapers, it's always kind of interesting. So the Wall Street Journal ran a story a couple of weeks ago, and you know, we've all read stories about how teachers or recruiters or other things are trying to, or you know, book publishers are trying to detect whether something's been written by AI or not. Well, it turns out that OpenAI themselves, the people who created ChatGPT, have had a tool that can detect content written by ChatGPT with 99.9% accuracy for a year already.
Well, I guess they'd be the best people to create that tool.
Well, yeah, they're obviously going to know how to do this. But interestingly, they've never released it to the public. Why do we think that is?
May slightly disrupt their business.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so that's pretty interesting. The second thing we've seen is a research paper come out where they were testing the ability of medical chatbots. So imagine, you know, we've all hung on the phone waiting to get through to somebody at the doctor's surgery, or phoned 111 and waited forever to be told something pretty useless, which is usually go to your doctor's surgery. So people have been trying to see, well, actually, could you do sort of first line medical triaging using something like ChatGPT that was trained on a huge corpus of medical data? Well, the results are in, folks, and the answer is no way. The accuracy is so low. The manufacturing of results or blurring of facts is so great that it's going to be a while before anybody's going to bet their life on what ChatGPT tells them to do.
I'm sure there are a lot of amazing brains working on this, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you crack that, I mean, imagine the dollar signs.
And the difference to society.
And the difference to society, of course. We have ethics here at Spark too, which actually brings us on to the final in the news story, which is, you know, we all know that these models have been trained on everything they've scraped off the internet without asking anybody for permission. But finally, we have red hot proof of it, where Runway, the video model we were just talking about, and NVIDIA, the guys who make the chips, who are now almost the most valuable company in the world and are also building their own video model, have literally been caught red-handed scraping every video on YouTube and every video off Netflix to train their video models. A whistleblower in each of those organizations has released spreadsheets that catalog all of the YouTube accounts and all of the Netflix films with the labels that they've put against them to train the model, and all of that stuff is now fully out in the open. The first lawsuit has already been flung at them by a YouTube creator who's looking for $5 million in damages because his name appears in the list. And we're going to see more of this stuff, right? There's already ongoing lawsuits against OpenAI and most of the other video makers. And we're just going to have to see how these things play out. At what point in America, the argument is this stuff falls under fair use because they are using it to build a new technology. They're not directly imitating your content. But the reality is, if you ask it to create an image in the style of somebody, it will. And how did it know what that style is? Well, by looking at your pictures or your illustrations or your whatever. So watch this space.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
So last part of the segment here, we've gone through a little bit of everything that's going on out there in the world of AI. And we thought we would talk a little bit right at the end about what we're doing with AI. Yeah. And actually, the last few weeks, Emma has been up to her elbows in ChatGPT. And what have you been?
But yeah.
What have you been up to?
Yeah, so we thought it'd be useful to talk about like how we're using AI internally within our own business, because that might be quite helpful for some people. So I put a post on LinkedIn earlier this week about my custom GPT that's a tone of voice converter that I have found really helpful.
So what is a tone of voice converter?
I know it's not a very, I need to think of a better title for it. It's a bit clunky, isn't it?
What do you use it for, first of all?
So I use it to convert something that I write generally into Spark's tone of voice. So I normally use it for creating kind of like lower value content. So it might be LinkedIn posts, or other social media posts. It might be kind of longer form content for our website or even emails.
So these are things that you've drafted quickly yourself,
yeah.
And you need some help to put it into something that is sort of on brand for Spark.
Exactly. And like Spark's tone of voice really is a combination of our tones of voice on our best ever days, probably. And so not every day is our best ever. Well, for me, isn't my best ever day in my writing style. So I'll tell you a bit about how I did this.
Yeah. So how did you put it together?
Yeah, so I was actually inspired by a post by Heather Murray, who's a really brilliant AI thought leader. She's definitely worth following on LinkedIn. And she talked about her experience of developing tone of voice guidelines, not a tone of voice converter. But what I did first was I created some tone of voice guidelines for Spark based on a lot of content that we'd already written and we'd put a lot of thought and effort into and written the human way.
Old school.
Yeah, exactly. So I asked, I used ChatGPT for this, but you could use Claude would probably be really good as well. I just chose ChatGPT. I asked it to analyze a number of examples of our copy, of different types of copy, and look at its levels of different things, like different levels, its level of humor, sort of respectfulness, politeness, formality, like enthusiasm, that kind of thing, and kind of analyze it and rate where it is on the scale of each of those things, and also look at the kind of sentence structures, the punctuation, the grammar, how much we use emojis, kind of aspects like that.
So it's taking stuff we've already written and kind of codifying that and saying, well, this is the style that you've been writing in.
Exactly. It puts it into like a set of rules, and it gives examples for each of those rules as well.
Okay. And then what do you do with it?
So then this is when the custom GPT bit comes in. So I set up a custom GPT, and essentially that tone of voice guideline became like the instructions behind the scenes for the custom GPT.
Got it.
And I think, the thing that makes the custom GPT work really well is that I fed to make the guidelines, I fed it loads and loads of examples of our copy. So it had lots of reference material. So behind the scenes in the custom GPT, it has the instructions, and I've also then again uploaded examples of what I thought was our sort of best.
Okay, so it's got a good set of training data
really
of like, this is what good looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now all I need to do when I write an email at a time that is not coming out straight, I'm also dyslexic, so sometimes it's the wrong way around. I write it and then I copy and paste it into the custom GPT, my tone of voice converter, and it comes out sounding how I wanted it to sound in my head, which is brilliant. And I think there's like so many opportunities for this for copywriters, when they've written really, really clear guidelines for different brands, particularly for that kind of like lower value copy where it's, you know, more about social posts and that kind of thing. It's not necessarily about getting your core messaging across. I think actually thinking about that, putting your messaging in that as part of the instructions for the GPT could be really, really interesting.
Watch this space. That sounds like the next evolution. But yeah, I think custom GPTs are hugely useful. We've built a few. We'll probably talk about more of them on future episodes, but they're the easiest way to start to unlock some of the real power of these large language models, I think, and fantastically helpful from everything from research to ideation to concepting. All of that, they can really, really help and keep things high quality, on brand, give you loads of great ideas. Yeah, and they really help on their own, and they really help as part of an automated workflow. And we'll talk about both in the course of these sessions. Great. Well, we've been going 27 minutes, so I think it's time to wrap it up. Quite impressed how we're kind of spot on. Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like we planned it. Yeah. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. We're going to be back same time in 2 weeks' time. Might not always be in this location. Let's see. We'll see where we are. But if there's anything that comes up that you want us to cover in a couple of weeks, just pop us a note, add a comment, and on LinkedIn, or just send us an email, give us a call, and we'll try and cover it. But in the meantime, have a really great end of summer. Don't want it to be end of summer. Feels like autumn already here. I know, it's freezing. Yeah. Can't wait to go on holiday. See you all. Bye, everyone. Bye.